Welcome to the Game of Fintech podcast. I'm today's host. My name's Peter Warren, and delighted to be with you for today's second podcast in our series, and very special guest who I've had the pleasure of working with for a period of time now, Mel Drago, the founder of Tanngo, Australia's, in fact, probably the world's first online paraplanning marketplace. So I think today's going to be a great episode. So thanks, Mel, for joining us.
Pete, I'm really excited to be here and talk about all this stuff paraplanning.
So obviously we're going to talk a bit about Tanngo, but really keen on your journey, because obviously this podcast likes hearing about the story behind the founder and the fintech companies that they run. So I'd just love to hear your background and why you started Tanngo.
Yes, I'll start how I started in the industry, which was 1997, and I was 17 years old, and I was looking for a job in admin, and I got this job in a financial planning practice. And I had never heard of financial planning. I didn't know what superannuation was. I was there making files, doing direct share certificates, entering into software we had then, which was, Boss, I think. And from there, I started to do my DFP and learning about financial planning. I loved it. I thought it was really good. And then we had lots of crashes, the technology crash and all that sort of stuff. But I became a paraplanner from there back in the early 2000s and was paraplanning for a long time. And I did like most paraplanners which is the strategy and the technical side of stuff. So I continued to do my study and did my master's. And then I moved to AXA because I wanted a big corporate environment. I met my then husband. I drank a lot before the GFC, like everyone else did in the GFC. But I was paraplanning there, became a senior paraplanner. And then I really love the technology component of paraplanning. And I think that's something which we'll talk about today, how paraplanners really drive the technology in a financial planning practice. And I think that's where a lot of people like to be. So I did like to be there. And I started to manage the advice, templates and documents team at AXA, which then became AMP. And that's where I learned how to really use the software to create really efficient templates, got to use all this new technology, speak to lots of stakeholders. And then I progressed my career to working with ANZ and doing some remediation there, and then working with industry fund services. And from there, I realised that my heart was in paraplanning, and I saw a gap there in the market, and I can talk about that in a minute. But yeah, and that's where I started Tanngo, which I'm working on today, which is very exciting. So yeah, that's my journey.
So I mean, it's quite a brave step, starting your own company. How did you do it? Did you sort of do it at night, or how did you get started?
So scared. I always have these silly little ideas. I've always had little ideas to do little businesses. Like I had the idea to have, phone charging stations in nightclubs so you could charge my phone. It's just like there's always a need you see that you can fulfill, right? And then I had this idea that was pinging in my mind. I really wanted to help contract paraplanners. And initially I thought it was more about the tools that they could access. How do they access Xplan more efficiently and cheaply? How do they get, or other software, technical support, CPD training? I thought maybe I could create a platform for that. And then one of my contract paraplanner friends said, what would be good also if I could get some work as well, when I'm really quiet. And then I went, oh my God, that's what I need to create, a marketplace to help planners and paraplanners find each other. Also, I was getting pinged a lot by all my advisor friends saying, oh, do you know this paraplanner that's really good at all this sort of stuff? And I'm like trying to find them. And so I was doing it manually anyway. So then I decided I might have to do this, and I had no idea how to start it. I knew how to do it after hours, and that's getting a lot of support from people that are better at things than I am and understanding how to kick stuff off. So I saw digital people, talked to people that owned financial planning businesses and paraplanners, and how do I get started. And then from there, I just kicked it off, and it's been a learning experience the whole time. Very dry. I think I haven't worked a 10-hour day. I've not worked a 10-hour day in 3 years, but it's very fulfilling, and I probably would do it again if I had to. But yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So I just
and like you went for it.
I know you went for it, and Pete, you wake up and you go, "What have I done? What am I doing?" But you just keep going because you can't stop once you start. It's too good. You see the future and want to keep going.
And I like that you you said you lent on other people. I do. I talk to founders. I do often hear that a key part of their success is the team around them. Whether you're a solo founder or you're blessed enough to have a great co-founder like I've got, or whatever. So did you sort of, how did you sort of manage that? Because you probably have a lot of people on your shoulder giving you advice, but also you probably have a very clear vision as to what you want to look like there. Do you sort of, do you just bounce ideas off people informally, or how do you sort of make decisions for the business?
Definitely bounce. So I had this idea, which, to be honest, trying to describe that concept to people, especially people in the industry, was a challenge in itself. So I kept saying, I've got this idea for a marketplace, and people kept thinking I was a paraplanning business. And I'm like, no, I'm not the business. I'm actually getting paraplanners on the platform to connect. And so that in itself was very challenging. So I did have to talk to a lot of people to validate the idea. And once they got it, that was good. Some people didn't think it was a good idea, and you have to take that and understand why. And then, maybe you do have to adjust your approach. So that was beneficial as well. But mostly it was about how do I think talking to other people helped me refine the idea, make sure it was the right way forward. Who do I speak to? I did speak to a lot of people that were just in for the money and they wanted a bit of share of the pie. And you sort of got to be careful about that too, I think, as a founder. And you'll probably see that too. Yeah, so you had to be careful who to speak to. And as a female as well, I had some people, were trying to, I've actually had this person say to me in a bar, you know what, you need a good man in front of you to be the voice for you, because you're not going to get out there with the thing. Oh no, Pete, tell me. I said, okay. And that just spread me on even more. Don't tell me that, mate. Give me another beer.
I was going to say, knowing you, that would have just made you dig your heels in even more.
Thank you. Anyway, yeah. So, you get a bit of that.
Yeah.
Too. Yeah. So.
Okay. And one thing I've really admired about you and your strategy, because building marketplaces is a really complex game, that you need to solve this chicken and the egg problem between building enough demand for services and enough supply of those services. So if you look at the journey of Uber or Gumtree or Airtasker or any of these sort of businesses that have sort of created these online marketplaces, they'll all tell you the same story, that getting that balance is really. But you did something quite smart, and in that you set up a Facebook group, which I think served very much the supply side of what you're talking about. Could you just talk a bit about your Facebook group?
Yeah, so it was based on two things I wanted to achieve. First of all, giving support to contract paraplanners, because I was friends with contract paraplanners and I said, I have a technical query and I don't know where to go, or I just need help with X plan, that just someone to bounce an idea off, and they didn't know where to go. So that was one problem I was trying to solve. So I thought I need to get these paraplanners together to talk, because I was in a big, the AXA paraplanning team. And if you needed help, you walk over to Tim over there and he'd help you and give you some tips on how to write it. And you'd have peer reviewing and all that sort of stuff. And that was a really good network to help grow your skills as a paraplanner. You don't have that when you're a contract paraplanner sitting at home with your cats. So I thought I've got to fix that up. So we had that. And then the other thing, I was like, because I had Tanngo, I was like, that's buzzing around my head at the same time. And I was like, how am I going to get an audience of paraplanners to talk to them about Tanngo, to actually see what they want? And like, you tell me, where could you do that in this marketplace? I looked on LinkedIn, I looked on Facebook to see if there was groups set up. There was UK groups setting up. There was nothing in Australia. And I thought, what the hell? I can't believe, can I say that? What the hell in Australia? I can't believe there's not a group or an audience where I can just talk to paraplanners. There's financial planning groups. So this was my way to say, look, I understand your needs. Let's build a community, but also gives me the way to help communicate and bring stuff to these paraplanners in a way that's never been done before. So yeah, that was also helping inadvertently the supply for Tanngo as well, which I haven't really, to be honest, Pete, I've been not trying to go in there and pinch people, because, they're doing very well and Tango's done well without me having to go in there. So it's good. Yeah, and I'm trying to keep organic. But
I think when people can tell the generosity spirit, behind the group, that you're not, just by association, people will look to Tanngo, those paraplanners, when they want to find additional work. But the thing I must admit selfishly, I quite enjoy trolling that group a little bit and taking a look, trawling, I should say, not trolling, that group, and contributing occasionally where I feel I can add value, because I get trolled, I think. But the paraplanners are in many ways the forgotten users of financial technology software in our industry. And from our time, running X-Plan consultancy businesses, we saw that Facebook group was a wonderful source of information on potentially X-Plan sites that weren't performing very well, paraplanners, frustrations with different pieces of financial planning software, training gaps that exist in the industry. I think it's a real untapped resource for software companies to work out, improve customer success and adoption. Can you just talk a bit about the needs of paraplanners from technology companies and what can they do better?
I would love to get them all in the room and go and slap them across the face, because I'm struggling to get good training for paraplanners. And this is understandable. So usually the philosophy is, you don't have a license, you can't get access to the training, because it's for people that have licenses. But we've moved to a world where we don't have a business that hires 5 paraplanners anymore, or we don't have institutions that have paraplanning teams. So what we have is small businesses, usually. I think that's where the market's going. Maybe it'll change in the future, but at the moment, it's about 60 or 70% of the business is small boutiques. They're trying to use contract paraplanning services, and these contract paraplanners don't have the licenses to the software, because obviously the practice has the license to the software and they have all the data in there, and the paraplanners need to use a login that they provide. So they don't have the login to get the training. So then we've got situations where paraplanners want to learn new software, but they can't. They don't know how to access the training for that new software. So they're limited in what they can offer in the services they provide. Then you've got only the bigger practices that really have the software, all the software, and they're trained up in all the software. So planners are really limited in who they can contract out to, because half of the paraplanners don't know how to use more than one software, or they've got to pay high prices to the businesses that do and can afford to pay for that software and train their paraplanners. So it's really a limiting, not only is it, I can see where they're coming from, but the downward effects of that is that it's making everything more expensive and hard to work with for the paraplanners. So, yeah, I'd love to see better training for the paraplanners for sure, and access. Yeah.
Do you, the industry's obviously been dominated by, one major software solution, which is Iris, which probably most paraplanners learn their trade on. Do you see potential complications for the future with other software providers trying to enter this market and challenge that incumbent? And just how do you be fluent in 4 or 5 different financial planning software solutions?
And I think I reckon paraplanners they'll probably prefer one over the other. But what I'm hearing, and you probably see that too in the group, Peter, they want to learn other software. They want to expand the services that they offer. If I had a new financial planning software, I would go straight to all the paraplanners, give them free training, give them a series of training. So I've got an army of paraplanners that can use my software and service the market, and then tempt perhaps people off the software that they're using onto my software. Give them, paraplanning access that's cheaper than a full license. Stuff like that to really push the market share and get probably a better market share than what they're doing now. And that's by targeting the paraplanners, who are the creators of advice essentially, and the biggest users of like the cash flow modelling and all that sort of stuff. They're the ones that use that part of the software. Yeah. So that's what.
Do you think paraplanners would pay for software themselves?
I have some paraplanners and they consider it, but this is what happens. So they'll buy software for $500 to $700 a month, which is an extraordinary amount for people that are earning 60 to 70 grand a year. Yeah. So some of them consider it, but if they're working with planners, they give them access. They want them to use their software and templates. So use my software. Here's a log on. They've really got to make that commercial to use their own software. At the moment, it's not. So, maybe there will be a world where the paraplanners would have ownership of the modelling part of the software and the planners would just need to use a CRM maybe. And then I could see how that would work. But at the moment, they'd buy software, use it maybe once or twice a month for planners that don't have any software. And it's not just real commercial for the paraplanners. So I think we've got this little chicken and egg thing happening. What do we do?
Yeah, and I think it's a real challenge, but a lot of other industry verticals have gone through this transformation. So the accounting industry with Xero, for example, they just started giving away Xero Practice Manager to accountants to use and charge the small business. Adobe did some really interesting things with what they did with Lightroom for creatives and, helping photographers access tools that typically cost many, many thousands of dollars in a monthly subscription model. Certainly I accept that they're much bigger verticals, there's a bigger market, generally speaking. But you're quite right that there's the actual jobs people are doing with software is really different, whether you're a paraplanner or advisor, and there is a line there effectively which could be drawn. We talk to software companies a lot about this and they sort of kind of get it, but struggle to get their head around it. Because I actually think there's a commercial opportunity for software companies if they get it right.
Absolutely.
A bit of vision.
And also, the planners I speak to, they don't want to learn how to use research or research software and all that sort of stuff. And it's just too complicated sometimes. It takes too long to learn it. They'd rather outsource that to someone else. The paraplanners love doing that stuff. So I think if they could change their thinking to think we've got to target these guys with just managing their business, how to communicate with clients, how do we really use all those tools that they probably don't even know how to use, and leave that stuff to the paraplanners and give them access in a better way. I think that'll be a game changer. Yeah. So,
just talk a bit more broadly about the paraplanning market, because there's a lot of headlines, obviously in our industry, about shrinking advisor numbers, and that we've lost circa 7,000 or 8,000 advisors since the Banking Royal Commission. For various reasons. What's your sense of what's happening with the paraplanning profession at the moment?
So I did that survey last year, and I was as surprised as I think most people were to find that like 72% of paraplanners don't want to be advisors, where in the old days that was probably a stepping stone to go from paraplanning to advising. So we've got this thing where paraplanners don't even want to become advisors, and we haven't got advisors coming to the market. But the paraplanners are staying. Actually, there's two things. They want to become paraplanners and want to stay paraplanners, and they're getting pumped. Like, they're busy as I think the market's possibly shrunk because of remediation and that sort of stuff as well. So the paraplanners that exist are getting pumped. And there's two issues here. They're not getting trained as well. So the junior paraplanners haven't got the resources. They haven't got the big institutions and the teams to really train them up well. So they're learning from boutiques, people with bad habits, other paraplanners. Maybe they're doing one or two SOAs and calling themselves paraplanners. That's another issue altogether. So what we've got is a real top-heavy, older paraplanning market that are very skilled, that are getting all the work, and there's junior paraplanners that want the work, but they can't get any work because no one's training them properly. So I think that's going to be an issue in the future when those guys move out of the paraplanning. So I think it's very busy at the moment. And so the people that say that it's not, like, the paraplanners, I think, are one of the busiest people I can see in the market at the moment, as well as advisors. We need to really train those younger paraplanners to make sure we've got the resources in the next 5 or 10 years to support advisors in the future. And I think that's going to be a problem with the paraplanning market. The survey also indicated that most of it's like 60% of them are over 30 years of age. So, I think that's a problem for me too as Tanngo. So, something I think we've got to address, not just me, but as an industry. How do we get new advisors and new paraplanners?
And this is, and it's not unique to advice, right? We have apparently a shortage of accountants, shortage of lawyers, which I never thought I'd say from, when I was a law school dropout. There was an oversupply of lawyers, one of the reasons I dropped out. And I guess, extending that theme, I mean, obviously locally trained paraplanners were a big part of the market. And I totally understand what you're saying about those institutions. Did a lot of great work training people. I was one of them. I learned to be a paraplanner. It was my first job. It was part of a bank. Whether that was the right place to learn, I'm not so sure. But nonetheless, it was structured. But obviously, we've seen a huge growth in offshore paraplanning by the major outsourced providers. What's your sense of that market relative to Australia? Is that growing faster or a similar rate? And what's the feedback been, do you think, from advisors who are using those services or a hybrid of both?
I think they've definitely got a place, and they're growing. The businesses I speak to are getting a lot of new business. I don't know if that's a symptom of can't find anyone here, I need something. So they'll go offshore, or they need to cut down their operational expenses because paraplanning is not cheap, and it is expensive onshore. And if you haven't got the revenue to support it, then I can imagine why you go offshore. So I think there's definitely a place for offshore paraplanning. I get mixed reviews. I have, this is just my personal experience. I have planners that have used offshore and they want to come back onshore because of and it's just because they are sort of learning most of the time the offshore businesses. There needs to be an element of quality control. Some of them do it well, some of them don't. Some of them are concerned about the data issues of having it offshore. Like I think, if there's a sort of an event offshore, they don't know what's going to happen. Is it going to shut down? Then where am I left? But some of them really love it and they use it for their, admin as well as basic stuff like ROAs or review documents, which are, easier to produce, and then put the onshore for their complex advice, which is, I think it's a good blend as well. So do I see it one or the other becoming more prevalent? I don't think so. I think they're always going to be a complement for different businesses. I would love to see paraplanners onshore becoming more efficient to compete more effectively with the offshore solution, because, having Australian paraplanners, I think is good for Australia and for our industry as well. So, But yeah, they're doing well, I think, and good on them. I think
I think that survey was fascinating, though. That's a real common misconception that paraplanners want to become advisors, and potentially leaves us in an even bigger bind as an industry around the supply of new advisors and where are they going to come from. I guess one of the things that we look to is the UK as a good example, and the paraplanning market is quite significant in the UK. Do you talk to any businesses, or have you researched any of the paraplanning businesses in the United Kingdom and what they're seeing? Are they seeing similar trends to Australia?
Yep, definitely. So I got linked in by 2 UK businesses, and they're flat out at the moment. They can't keep up with demand. And they're becoming, like Australia, they're recognising paraplanners as a profession in the industry rather than just a support back office function. And they've got groups, they've got training sessions. They've actually probably a step ahead of us. We've actually got formal accreditations and stuff, I think, happening, which is where I'd love to see Australia go, where you could, I find that anyone can say they're a paraplanner here, and there needs to be something to identify who's a paraplanner, who's not. I don't know what that is, but I think we need to get there like the UK is doing as well. They've got a formal accreditation. I think we are got formal accreditation, but it's not formalised. You don't have to do it to be a paraplanner. It's just something you can do. Yeah. It's exactly the same. I feel like we're just a couple of steps behind, but they're just a step in front of us, and they're experiencing the same thing since reform, just more demand for paraplanning. And they're being recognised to do the compliance part of it and all that sort of stuff as well. It's not just writing the plans. They're actually stepping up in the support that they provide, which is good.
I have noticed some of the software companies in the UK probably do a much more proactive job of managing the paraplanner profession, and some even have certifications for paraplanners. And because if you're hiring a paraplanner at the moment, other than literally sitting them down and making them model a few scenarios in front of you, which an advisor may or may not know how to monitor, how to assess that, you really don't have any certification to, A, as you say, are they qualified to be a paraplanner, and B, do they actually know to use how to use the tools properly?
Yep.
As well. So I think there's an enormous opportunity for the industry to collaborate better on that front. Yeah,
absolutely. And I can imagine as an advisor, the time and cost it would take to try to find a paraplanner that has the skills that you need, or that you just don't know until you use them once or twice, it's just a costly expense, and that's something we need to address, I think. Definitely in this industry. How do we recognise
your marketplace, Tanngo?
Goes a little way to do that. Yep. Yeah. So what I try to
your marketplace, Tanngo, solves some of those issues, though.
Yeah, it does.
Some of its features. You just talk about some of the features you've built. Yeah, some of the features you've built into the platform to solve some of these challenges.
Yeah, so and I was getting requests, as I said before, from financial advisors saying, I need a good paraplanner that knows this and that was really good at SMSFs or aged care or what have you. And they'd have all these stipulations about who the paraplanner should be. And for me, I was like, how do you know who's good? Even I was like, how do I know who's a good paraplanner? So what I wanted to do on Tanngo is to get to know the paraplanner, check their resume, do an interview with them, check how they write, like give them like an SOA so I can see if they can write well, if they're actually a paraplanner or they're just, say they are. Do reference checks and police checks and all that sort of stuff. So when a planner knows, when they use a paraplanner on Tanngo, they can see the profile of the paraplanner. They can see the reviews from other advisors that have used them before, their ratings. So I'm trying to strip away that transparency, the opaqueness of trying to hire a paraplanner. And most of the time, at the moment, it's like I try and buy, and it's just a time-consuming expense. So this way they can try paraplanners, and most of the time, what they'll find is just a personality thing rather than, it's just a personality thing rather than just are they skilled or not. And they can see, years experience. So I think that's important. And I'd love to improve this further with testing of the plan, so they can see, how good are they in this technical aspect, or they say they're SMSF specialists, are they? Let's do a test and test them. So even more bringing that, seeing their profile and are they what they say they are. I'd love to bring that onto Tanngo too, which is what I'm working towards. And I think that's important. If we haven't got the qualifications at the moment, well, we have to do it somewhere. So that's what I'm trying to do. Yeah.
And interesting enough, people from other platforms we will use, people often are more likely to rely on a ratings type system by their peers than they are a certification. If the paraplanner has a 5-star rating or whatever the term is you use, that's obviously going to be a bigger thing to rely on, potentially. Absolutely. Just some generic certification in the same way. Yeah, like an Uber driver has a driver's license, we know that, but there's good Uber drivers and not so good Uber drivers. Yeah.
And they do. And the star rating, I thought, I'll do a 3-prong approach on quality, timeliness, do they get back to you on time? And that's the other thing Tanngo does is there was a lot of big turnaround times, and that's because of the demand on paraplanners. So you can actually set your due date on Tanngo. So do the paraplanners meet your due date? And would you work with them again? So there's a 3-prong rating, not just one 5-star rating. So you can actually look at the profile and go, well, their quality is really high, but maybe they don't put it back on time. Is that a big deal breaker for me? I'd rather have the quality. So you can choose a paraplanner based on different ratings. And then you got the written feedback. Great paraplanner, thank you. And that really goes a long way to help you pick the right paraplanner. But, even with all that, I still get planners going, can I get that personal validation that this is a good paraplanner? And so I think that's what Tanngo is all about too, bring the people back into it. It's not just the technology platform, it's people behind it that really drive that outcome that they need. So, yeah.
And I guess, you've had the platform going for well over 12 months now. So you're continually iterating. What are the sort of things you're thinking about beyond ratings and those? What are the big ticket items that you want to see Tanngo deal with?
When I initially did it, so excuse me, so it was a Tanngo marketplace, and it's becoming more and more apparent to me because it's been used more, the direct access. So having your own paraplanning panel, your own team. So what I'm trying to create on Tanngo is instead of having a marketplace where you just put stuff to, you actually can create a team of back office support on Tanngo. So you can have a virtual team, onshore team of paraplanners. So one of the biggest challenges I saw for advisors is that you get a paraplanner, you love them, You start working with them and then they go off and do another job or they leave paraplanning and then you're stuck at square one. So what I want to do with Tanngo is build a panel, or have done, build a panel for planners where they can send work directly to their team members. So I want to really build that out, make it more functional, make it so it's more like a virtual office, and then possibly bring in other support services to help the planner. So they're really trying to cut down the costs and the time it takes to do the things that they need to do without having to search for resources all the time. So that's what I want to do. I've got what am I trying to think? I really want it to be a place where you can get access to tools effectively, or get your paraplanner access to the tools that you have in the office effectively. At the moment, I find it so clunky, and it's something I'm trying to fix, which I'm doing at the moment. How do we get the paraplanner access to the tools in your office effectively? So that's something I want to try to achieve in the future. And the ultimate goal, which is my biggest, if I can crack this nut, I'll be so happy. How do we get the things in a planner's head to the paraplanner in the most effective way without having to ask questions over and over again and all that back and forth? So I'm working on ways to make that even more effective and efficient now. And I think I can do it. It's just, how do we do it, make it effective? So once we can just transfer that information over, the paraplanner goes, I know exactly what you're talking about, writes a plan. It's a one-step, two-step process. That's ultimately where I'd like to go with Tanngo. Yeah.
That's a great roadmap. I think I know there's a whole bunch of fintechs out there trying to work on solutions to, in many ways, replace a paraplanner, which I think is the wrong hypothesis. I think the best AI is a human brain. It's still yet to be replaced. And quite often people are solving a problem that's not really the real problem. I think you've articulated that really well, that a lot of the delays and reworks and things that happen in advice processes is because of crap in, crap out, frankly, and solving those processes. And I think, I'm interested in your thoughts on this, but I think the industry is changing really quickly, because I think the advisors who are still in the industry, they're effectively managing their time much differently than they have ever before. Their income is pretty much determined by their efficiency from a time perspective. So do you feel like the advisors are coming on the journey with paraplanners in this sense?
Yeah, I think they're recognising more and more the value of a paraplanner. And I can see that because I can see them overwhelmed. The ones that used to write their own SOAs are coming to me going, I just can't do this anymore. Mm-hmm. They need to concentrate on their business. They need to get money in the door in order to be a profitable business. And so they have to bite the bullet and recognise that I need to pay someone who's less of a value than my hourly rate to do the SOAs. It may do it quicker. So, yes, I'm definitely seeing a change in that thinking, and lots of support for paraplanners. And people that I speak to about the business, the Tanngo business and what I'm trying to do, they're like, this is great. This is where I think we need to be. So I think that's comforting, that I am going in the right direction. But, yeah, I do see, as you can imagine, still pushback with pricing. And so if that's something I'd like to, and I can see why. So, they don't want to use a paraplanner if they're too expensive, but then they're stuck where they're doing it themselves. So it's just that thing. So if we can make paraplanners more efficient and more cost effective and producing more plans quicker, that I think is where we need to go. But yeah, I think they're supportive of where things are going. They're becoming more flexible. I used to always see ads, you have to be in the office, and I need someone to help because I need that person in the office to talk to them. And I'm seeing definitely a change in mindset about having someone in the office. They're even looking for admin people outsourcing. They're looking at paraplanning outsourcing. This would never have occurred before COVID. So now they're learning to deal with people remotely, which is good, I think. And also the paraplanners don't want to work in an office anymore. I talk to them and they're just going, no, I just can't do it. I'm just loving working from home and having that flexibility to pick up my kids and work with multiple practices. I think they're getting a lot of value I'm talking too much on it. A lot of value about getting exposure to different businesses, and it helps them grow as a paraplanner as well, learning more businesses rather than just being in one small business. So I think, it's definitely a shift, and people are appreciating it and moving towards that new model, I think, which is good.
Well, I think, you're doing some wonderful things with Tanngo. I'm very biased. I'm a big fan of what you're doing. I think it's an important, it's a real unlock for our industry. We have a lot of inefficiencies in our industry, and this is just one of them in terms of how we provide services, and getting that coalition of paraplanners and advisors together, hopefully bringing the software companies on the journey, which you're starting to agitate on, which is great. It's just so important. But I think ultimately making the job of a paraplanner a better job, a more enjoyable job. It's just such a cool objective for your platform. And that, I think the marketplaces that actually make the users' lives better are the ones that are going to win in the long run.
Yeah, no, it's good. No, they do. Yeah. And it's good to see. And I'm the same. Like, everyone, since COVID, it's like, not to work in the office anymore with that crappy coffee machine. So.
And I think for businesses, I mean, I sit on a few boards and I look at look at the world pre and post COVID, and any company that's got a CBD office that's putting a person on the desk, spending probably $20,000 a year to keep that person at their desk.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they should be there, but only if they want to be there.
Yeah.
If they don't want, and I think paraplanning is a particularly unique role where I'd say focus is a really important part of the role, the deep work. And for many people, that's at home. Not so much for me with young children, but for many, home is a sanctuary. But I also think paraplanning is a wonderful occupation for those people that, have families or have other interests outside of work, as they should, where they can work evenings, weekends, and still get the job done. And if the marketplace enables that more effectively and helps manage their workflow, that's awesome as well.
And I'm finding what I've tried to do, and I think I am achieving, is bringing resources to the market, because I had these parents and new parents that were like, all of a sudden I want to do work, but I don't know where to start, and I don't want to have to do all the admin and set up my own business and all that sort of stuff. So it gives them an opportunity to actually provide the resources to the industry, which we so sorely need. So this is another way to really improve how we get access to those paraplanning resources as well, by bringing them to the market.
Well, I think that's a good note to wrap on with, Mel. I've got one sort of last question that I like to ask guests or people I talk to, and I think your story is quite inspirational to a lot of people out there, particularly young women in our industry who've got these great business ideas and want to take that step. Any advice for your 20-year-old self if you were going back in time?
Yes. I remember I walked out as a 20-year-old. I wanted to do paraplanning. I was an admin. I was good at admin. I'm going to be very frank here. I was good. And that's why they would never put me in paraplanning. And so I walked out the door of that business and I said, I want to do this. So I had to have confidence in myself. And I think as it's getting much, much better now, but back then in the early 2000s, having that confidence as a woman to go, I want to do this, I want to progress like my male peers, was very, very confronting. So I want to tell that person, that Mel, when I walked out of there, I was freaking out. Just keep going, keep persisting. And even now, just keep persisting and trusting in yourself and your abilities. And you are going to get hurdles. I've had hurdles, and you're going to think I'm not great at doing stuff, but you keep going and sit back, have a coffee and think about what you've done. And I think that's what I had to do, and I often have to do. And I know there's lots of paraplanning business owners who are women that probably have the same challenges and go, look what we've done. So
great.
That's my advice to myself.
Great advice, Mel. Well, thanks for joining us today. I encourage for those that haven't seen Tanngo to check out the Tanngo marketplace, Tanngo,
Yep.
And definitely jump onto the Paraplanner Hub on Facebook. Mel, I'm sure will let you in the group if you're a listener, and I'm sure Mel would be more than welcome to talk to anyone who's found anything particularly interesting today. You can slide direct into Mel's LinkedIn DMs or Facebook DM. I'm sure it's fine. And I think it's a wonderful story. We continue to watch with interest the growth of Tanngo. I see it going in many, many directions in the future, and we'd love to get you on maybe later in the year and see how you're progressing, because I think things are going to move quickly for you.
Yeah, it'll be good. Thanks, Pete. Thanks for your time, and appreciate it.
Thanks, Mel.
Thank you.
Well, that's second episode wrapped up. We've got some exciting international guests coming for our next couple of podcasts. So I hope you can join us on the Game of Fintech. Thanks for listening.